Okay, welcome in. You're listening to a weekend special that we have put together at the Cambridge House International Investment Conference up here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I've got Ron Hera with me right now. Ron has a very, very interesting publication called Hera Research. As I've gotten to know Ron over the past few years, I have to tell you, he's a guy who you really, really ought to listen to. Very bright, very intuitive, has a lot of good things to say. We have a banner for Hera Research on our site. If you want to get more information about it, just click on that banner. Ron, you gave a keynote speech at the conference where you were suggesting that 2012 was going to be the year of expensive.
Well, yeah, basically the title of the talk was Global Competition for Natural Resources. And the premise of it was that we're reaching a point with monetary inflation where we're going to see global commodity prices rising, and especially oil and energy prices specifically. So if you look at where the oil is, and you look at the proven reserves and the peak oil declines, I'm not an advocate of peak oil theory. I have my own theory. It's called cheap oil theory.
Cheap oil theory.
Cheap
okay.
oil theory.
Well, I don't know with what's going on over in Iran right now. I did maybe, but not tomorrow.
Well, cheap oil theory basically says we're not running out of oil. We're
right.
running out of sweet light crude that's near surface, and so we still have plenty of oil shale and oil sands. We've got a lot of natural gas potential for compressed natural gas for vehicles and so forth. So, but all those things are more expensive. So I'm calling 2012 as the end of cheap everything. And the leading indicator is oil, and of course fossil fuels feed into everything, even food. Sure. So global commodity prices will rise as a function of the oil price, in my opinion. Now,
when you say global commodity prices, we talking about gold and silver also?
Oh yeah. I mean, as you see the currencies devalue, gold and silver are going to rise. People are going to seek safety and to preserve their wealth in hard assets and commodities.
Boy, I tell you, I don't think there's any question about that. It's interesting. We were speaking with James Turk, and we were speaking with Lawrence Ralston. You have to admit, a couple senior guys in the industry, and they were both very, very bullish, as I am, in terms of the precious metals. How do you think it's going to affect the other commodities, for example, the base metals?
Well, the way I've been looking at it is really in terms of oil and gas, and in terms of the global demand from the BRIC nations specifically for commodities and natural resources like copper, even food, and the impact of fossil fuel prices on food. So what I think is going to happen is, since there's already too much debt in the Western economies, so in the European...
Really? Too much debt, okay.
Right, they're over-leveraged, right? So if you look at
one could say that.
If you look at the absolute debt to GDP, what you'd see for the United States is that debt pulls away in an exponential function from the GDP, and just as predicted by Keynesian economics, as the borrowing and spending progresses, the economy does grow. The problem is it grows at basically a linear rate, but the debt pulls away exponentially until, of course, you have basically a collapse. Now, the rules of the game today, especially in the Eurozone, are that banks can't fail because that would trigger credit default swaps, and at the same time, obviously, countries can't default on their debt because that would trigger the CDSs. So if banks can't fail, in other words, they have to be recapitalized and they have to be bailed out, and countries can't default, then the only path forward is inflation, regardless of what the policymakers say.
That is a very interesting point. What do you guys think about that? Let us know in our comments section. By the same token, click on the banner for Hera Research. You get more of Ron's insights, no cost. Ron, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.